Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle a single word that you've heard a million times, a word that quietly shapes what millions of people learn, how they learn it, and what our society decides is important. That word? Curriculum.
Seriously, what does it actually mean? We throw the word around all the time. Is it just a textbook? A list of standards from the government? Or is there something more going on?
So, fun fact, the word comes from the Latin for racecourse. Kind of gives you the image of a simple, clear path, right? A straight shot from the starting line to the finish. But as we're about to see, the real story is way, way messier. Most of us think of a curriculum as the official stuff, the textbook, the syllabus. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's also all the hidden things, the unspoken values, the lessons you learn in the hallway, and maybe most powerfully, all the topics that are completely left out. So, here's our game plan. We're going to try to pin down what this thing is, look at the big ideas behind it, see how it's actually built, meet the people who do the work, and then wrap up with why all of this matters so much. Let's jump in.
All right, first things first, we have to face the biggest challenge right up front. There is no single, easy definition of curriculum. Trying to nail it down is tough because it's not a static thing. It's this living, breathing conversation that's always changing.
Some of the early, really influential thinkers like Hilda Taba kept it super simple. To her, it was just a plan for learning. That's it. Think of it like the architect's blueprint. It's the intention, what's supposed to happen.
But of course, the idea evolved. It wasn't just a plan anymore. It became about providing learning opportunities. And that little change in wording is a big deal. We're moving from just a list of topics to intentionally designing experiences for students.
Which brings us to a more modern way of looking at it. And this part is key. A curriculum is both the plan on the paper and what actually happens when a teacher closes the classroom door. It's the plan and the reality.
So, to really get your head around it, you have to think in 3 dimensions. First, there's the planned curriculum. That's the official syllabus. Easy enough. Then there's the hidden curriculum. These are the unwritten rules, the things you learn about values and behavior just by being there. And then, my personal favorite, the null curriculum. That's everything that is intentionally or unintentionally left out. And believe me, what we don't teach can be just as powerful as what we do.
So if defining the word is that tricky, you can bet that people have some very different and very strong opinions on how to build one. Let's walk through 6 of the major philosophies that shape how a curriculum gets made.
Think of each of these as a completely different lens. They're all trying to answer the same fundamental questions. What's actually worth knowing? What should we teach? And why?
Okay, let's start with 2 that are basically polar opposites. On one side, you have the behavioral approach. It's super structured, very scientific, and all about results you can see and measure. This is the world of rubrics and standardized tests. Then, on the other end of the universe, you have the humanistic approach, like at the famous Summerhill School. This is all about student freedom, personal growth, and the whole child. Things that are much harder to grade, but are obviously incredibly important. Then you've got a couple of approaches that think like an organization. The managerial approach sees the school as a social system that needs to be organized and run efficiently. Think roles, resources, schedules. The systems approach takes that idea and zooms out even further. It sees the school as one giant interconnected machine where every single part, from the lunch schedule to the IT budget, affects every other part.
And this last pair really gets at a core tension in education. You have the traditional academic approach, which is all about passing down established knowledge, the great books, the core subjects. It's focused on the what. But then you have the postmodern approach, which comes in and asks, wait a second, who decided that knowledge was the most important? Whose voice is missing? It's focused on the why, and it deconstructs the curriculum to look at the politics and power hiding inside.
So you've got all these big abstract ideas floating around. How in the world do they become what a teacher actually does in a classroom on a Tuesday morning? Well, there's a whole process for that. This is where the rubber meets the road.
That entire journey from the initial idea all the way to the final exam is called curriculum development. It is the A to Z process of creating, rolling out, and then checking up on any learning experience.
And it's definitely not a one-and-done kind of thing. It's a cycle, a loop. Good schools are constantly asking what students need, building or revising the plan, putting it into action, and then evaluating how it went before starting the whole process over again. And here's what that can look like in the real world. A school district can't possibly overhaul every subject at once. It'd be total chaos.
so they stagger it. As you can see here, they might tackle math and science in one cycle, and then a few years later, they'll loop back around to social studies. It makes a massive job manageable.
Now, inside that big development cycle, there's the more specific job of curriculum design. If development is the whole construction project, then design is the actual blueprint. It's the art of arranging all the pieces, the goals, the content, the activities, the tests, so they fit together into a pattern that actually makes sense.
Okay, so a curriculum isn't just a document. It's something that has to be brought to life. And that takes a whole team of people, each with a really specific and important role to play.
So, who's on the team? Well, you've got the curriculum specialist, who's often the big picture planner, the change agent. You've got the principal, who's like the site manager, making sure the entire school is ready to make the plan happen. But you could argue the most vital role belongs to the teacher. They're on the front lines, making hundreds of tiny design decisions every day to adapt the plan for the real, living students in front of them. And finally, the student, the ultimate client. Their experience is the final and most important measure of success.
So, after all of this theory and process and philosophy, let's get down to the big question. Why should we care so deeply about all this stuff?
Because here's the bottom line. A curriculum is never neutral. It is always a social and political document. It's a statement about a society's values, its priorities. It's a choice about what knowledge is worth passing on. And those choices have huge, lasting consequences.
In the end, curriculum doesn't just shape what we know, it shapes who we become. It molds our view of the world and our place in it. Which leaves us with one final question to think about for ourselves. Thinking back on your own education, what did it truly teach you? Both the planned lessons and the hidden ones.